So grateful to get to lead this Back to Basics series here at Mile High that we do every January. The divine idea is our theme, and the message today is God is more. There were two lifelong friends who were outside porch theologians. They always loved to discuss and even argue about the nature of God. Did God create the world and then continue to meddle it and get involved and change and shape things? This is called theism. Or did God create the world and say, I'm taking off, I've implanted all the laws there, I'm going to go create other worlds somewhere else? That's called deism. That was the philosophy of many of the founding fathers. Or is God the world? Every river, every rock, every flower, every Rick Springfield song. This is called pantheism. And these friends were two men, but they liked as well to discuss and argue about the gender and even the ethnicity of God. And they both agreed that God must be a male. And looking at the state of some things in the world, I don't think a woman would ever allow that to happen. So they could be right about that. And one of these men was white, and one of them was black. And so one believed that God must be a white man, the other believed that he must be a black man. And it just happened synchronistically, like Thomas Jefferson and John Adams dying on July 4th, 1866, the same day. They both die on the same day. And they find themselves in this heavenly realm, and they're told that they're going to meet God. So they don't have any money to bet at this point, but they do have eternal bragging rights, an endless purgatory if I told you so. So they're very excited. They get brought into God's office, who has God's back turned to them. They're elbowing each other. They're so ready. And then God turns around and she says, "Buenos dias, señores." And the moral of the story is never limit God. We love to speculate, we love to describe, but never define. For the moment we put God in a box, we've lost the essence of what God is. Ernest Holmes, our founder, said, "The whole aim of the study of science of mind is to realize and consciously penetrate the upper atmosphere of our thought and bring down, as it were, into the lower mind greater visions of reality." The key to this teaching, the very key, is to continue to cast the net of our consciousness out to ever embody, download, and seek greater experiences of what the divine is and what it can do in our lives. This is the key to living a better life. It involves not only receiving the imprint of the divine, but ever giving more of ourself, more of our self-understanding, more of our focus to what it is. Mother Teresa, Saint Teresa of Calcutta, she said something like this. She said, "If God, who owes us nothing, is willing to give us all of himself, why won't we give even the smallest part of ourselves to God?" We get so focused on the so-called structure of our reality that we can forget that we're divine beings related to something infinite. And as we give ourselves to this divine presence, it gives itself more and more to us. The Prophet Muhammad is said to have said, "It is said that when you take one step towards God, God takes 10 steps towards you. But the truth is that God is always with you." We have to deal sometimes with these divine contradictions, that the fullness of the Spirit is here, and yet we must ever reach for it more and more to experience its fullness in our lives. Mahatma Gandhi said that even a single drop of the ocean contains God, but not even the 7 seas can contain what God is. ever present, but always more. And we all, as individuals, have our own relationship with this thing called the sacred, the rapport we build with it, this love intelligence, and how it opens us up to the divine possibilities of our life. Do you remember, for you, your first encounter with the divine? When you first began to have an embodiment of it in your life. For many of us, we have these deep mystical experiences even as children. This is true even of people here at Mile High Church. I think of my dear friend, I'm so blessed to have met her, practitioner Carol Buxton. Practitioner here for decades. She's 90 years young. But when she was 4 years old, her father was in the military, and she was in Fort Brown, Texas, and she saw something that made something feel off in her. It was something that was not in accord to what life is really about. And this little girl was walking by herself, and she began to have an experience of the one life, of the one source, an experience of God. She would come to name this presence the beloved. At 4 years old, she had this experience of the beloved, and it wasn't just a mystical experience, but it implanted in her this deep, deep awareness that would guide her for the rest of her days. And she would say, whenever she would hear something in church or be in a relationship and the man said something off, that she could always take that in and say, is this true of the beloved? And when it wasn't true, she would just discard it and keep moving forward. Another Mile Higher you may have heard of had a spiritual experience at a young age. His name is Roger Teal. He was 6 years old, so a late bloomer compared to Carol. But in his magnificent book, This Life is Joy, Roger talks about his dad mowing the lawn, and he decided to lay down in the grass, and he was just staring up at the sky, and he had an experience of kind of losing his sense of self and being one with everything. He shares, "It was as if I was no more. I was pulled totally into the scene, and the worldly Roger was gone. Now I was the sky and the clouds and the lawn and the sunlight. I have no idea how long this immersion experience lasted in chronological time. However, the depth of the experience felt timeless." And he goes on, "The most significant thing about it was that the experience left me changed. From that time on, I remember absolutely knowing that there is an ultimate source, spirit, or life permeating this universe, and it is love, a love that is wondrous and within all life." And as Roger continued his path, discovering and exploring all sorts of potential vocations, he kept going back to this experience and dedicated his life to understanding it and sharing it with others. And I'm guessing just a few of us have been blessed because of his dedication to that, right? Yeah. In the science of mind, we treasure the great truths of all faiths. And yet I love Ernest Holmes' definition of religion. He defined religion as one's idea of God. I love that because it's so incredibly personal. It means that each and every one of us, although we may be of the same faith, we have our own religiosity. It's up to each of us to discover the God of our own understanding and to grow it in all the different areas of our life. And again, we honor all the great faiths here, but for me, there are only two types of religion: outside religion and inside religion. Outside religion and inside religion. And every religion that there is has this outside aspect of it, faction, and inside faction. Outside religion is based on the premise that God is outside of you, and you have done something, or your ancestors have done something, or the world has done something to keep you from spirit. That it is in a sense rejected you. And you must find a medium that's often presented as a teacher, but generally it's an organization or a church that says, you can get to God, but through me. through devoting yourself to this organization, through practicing these particular teachings, to forgiving your sins, etc., etc. And I mean no disrespect, but for me, this can be a kind of hell, even though we don't believe in hell. It can cause us to self-reject ourselves and not understand the innateness of our own inner beauty, inner preciousness, that life that is within each and every one of us. Inside religion is based upon the premise that when you discover God within yourself, you can discover God everywhere. But it must be first found within. This was the core of Jesus' message. That if someone says, hey, look, the kingdom of God is over there, don't believe them. Or that it's going to come at a particular time, don't believe them, because the kingdom of heaven is within you. I believe in the God of the sky. I believe that we can talk to God and God can talk back to us. I believe in the God of nature. I believe in the God that we see in the joy and passion in the eyes of children. And yet I know that in order to discover that divinity, I must first go within and unlock an understanding of it within myself. So every faith has this outside and this inside. Christianity has the outside, but it also has the inside. Islam has the outside, but it also has the inside. Even religious science, our teaching, has its outside factions and its inside. But talking about this idea of one's idea of God, Ernest Holmes tells us that it's personal to all who feel this indwelling presence. That's the relationship where it starts, where it begins. To ask ourselves, could it be true that I'm related to something infinite? Could it be true that I'm related to something infinite that wants to express itself in my life? I know this is a theological and philosophical sermon today, but I hope we can touch on something really personal for each and every one of us. Because part of what we're doing when we're trying to locate God in the cosmos is we're also finding where we're going to center ourselves. Where are you going to center yourself? And if you get anything from this message that I share today, it is this. Never center yourself in an idea that does not suit the person you want to become. Never give yourself in service to a cause less than the truth of who you are. Never anchor yourself in an idea that does not speak, that does not resonate with the truth of who you really are. That's what this relationship with the divinity is all about. It's about centering ourselves in a divine idea for our lives so that divine idea can come forward. Because when we center ourselves in less than, we can only produce equal to that measure. What part of your own understanding of divinity is being called to break open so that a grander part of yourself can come through? For me, it's one of the most challenging experiences in life. I'm sure everyone will resonate at some level when you get engaged in something and you think it's going to be the vehicle to get what you want, but it becomes the very damn thing that keeps you from it. You ever had that experience? I got this job and it's going to lead me to success, and 3 years in, there's no path for growth. I'm not making enough money and I'm stuck. This relationship that was going to bring me true love, we moved into each other, and it's like Norman Lear said of his first marriage, we lived in two different worlds separated by infinity. All of a sudden, all of this intimacy and warmth you wanted to create, you feel distant from. We start working on ourselves and discover all of these limiting ideas that are imprisoning us, and we wouldn't prefer anything else but to get rid of ourselves and become something different. Now, one option is to ditch the job, the relationship, and even our own self-esteem. The other is to do just what Eddie was talking about in his song. It's to open up and to know that divinity is the answer. It's to look in those situations and challenges where we feel stuck and to say, what is my operating idea of God in this situation? And if we can open up to expand it, we can begin to experience meaningful change, whether we stay in the relationships and work or in the skin or not. I believe in a God and a divine idea for success for my life. So I'm going to embody that and have a courageous conversation at work. I am going to embody right here and right now the transparency, the love, and intimacy that I am seeking in my life. I'm going to practice it with my partner, and if the love that brought me into the relationship is the same one that takes me out of it, so be it. I'm going to learn to trust myself, the good and so-called bad parts of me, with such an encouraging love and upliftment that I will either transform or die trying. What is that challenge, that stuck place perhaps, that's calling you to bring forth a more courageous understanding of your divinity and this divinity that exists in this thing called the universe? Because it can bless us and it can bless everyone else too. Never center yourself in something that is less than the truth of who you are. Ernest Holmes in The Science of Mind, he shares, the Spirit animates everything that I do, say, or think. Ideas come to me daily, and these ideas are divine ideas. They direct me and sustain me without effort. I am continuously directed. I am compelled to do the right thing at the right time, to say the right word at the right time, to follow the right course at all times. I live in the Spirit of truth and am conscious that the Spirit of truth lives in me. Last week, if you were here or watching, I encouraged everyone to articulate what I call a creative affirmation. Did anyone do that last week? Articulate one for yourself? Do your homework, people. And that creative affirmation, you can go back and watch the talk. It's about a broad truth that we want to experience in our lives that in meditation each day we can apply to the many different aspects of our day. Today I want to encourage you to choose an anchoring affirmation. This is a statement of the divine truth that you can know when faced with a challenge or a stressful situation or uncertainty. One of my favorites, everything is in divine right order. Everything is in divine right order. Everything is in divine right order. When life seems totally out of order and a mess, I can still anchor myself in the truth that at some level of reality, everything is in divine right order. And I can call that forward into my experience, and guess what? Stuff comes together. I love one that Edward Viljoen, minister in Santa Rosa, articulated. There is one life. That life is God's life. That life is your life. That life is my life now. I've been echoing that in the dentist chair for 14 years. There is one life. That life is God's life. That life is your life. That life is my life now. We just anchor in that deeper truth. I love the last sentence of this quote from Ernest Holmes I just read. I live in the Spirit of truth and am conscious that the Spirit of truth lives in me. Use one of those or make up your own. But what does it mean when our divinity or a divinity is challenged in our lives? When we think that there is no greater power, that we're the only power that there is and we're helpless? When we come to find ourselves caught in the so-called common sense or the judgments of the world, what does it mean to anchor ourselves in deeper truth and allow them to open us up in profound and meaningful ways? You know, these talks we give at Mile High Church, they're for the downtrodden. They're for those who are on their last leg wanting to change their lives. But it's also there for those of us who are doing pretty damn good. And part of what we're always saying here is that the spiritual life, pretty good isn't enough. We want more good. Not overwhelming weight on our shoulders, because sometimes less is more, but we always want to be growing. If not, we're caught up in the Tao of Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm, who famously says, pretty good, pretty good. But we want more good, because living a creative life with a love intelligence is all about taking that daily time to just pay a little bit attention to what could be possible. And as we build a relationship with that possibility, it becomes real. And it begins calling us through the experiences of our lives to manifest and demonstrate profound and new realities that speak to what we have centered ourselves in, a higher, more profound truth of who we are. It's creative living. We got into a fight last month about the greatest rock and roll song of all time and the greatest decade of music. Roger had to call it out and said he was praying for me. But if we were asking that question, what about the greatest song of all time, one that would definitely be on the nomination sheet is Otis Redding's "Sitting on the Dock of a Bay." You remember that song? It's a beautiful song. It's sad in the sense that it was released after his death. Redding died in a plane crash at the age of 26. But here was an individual fully committed to his creative process. These Arms of Mine, his first hit, was recorded by chance. He was a part of a recording session, and they had a little time left in the session, and he put it to tape immediately, and it took off. He wrote the song Respect from the perspective of his wife, even though it was made famous by Aretha Franklin. And late in his career, a career cut short, so terrible because he was perhaps one of the greatest songwriters and performers ever. He was going to have a surgery on his voice, and he was invited by a friend to spend some time in Sausalito, California, to sit there on the bay. And as he was pondering what his future may be, as he was continuing to wrestle with his dream of having a #1 record, which we hadn't had yet, he sat and he wrote this beautiful song, Sitting on the Dock of a Bay, a song that is beautiful to me because it's both sad and melancholy, yet hopeful. It speaks to the past and the future, and yet it's a meditation. He's fully and completely present, and I would read you the lyrics, but damn it, we have Eddie Watkins Jr. here, so he's going to play us the song.